Good afternoon, Shark Squadron. This is Shark 31 back again with a Tomcat tutorial. Today we'll be covering the use of the Lantern targeting pod from the front seat, using Jester AI to find targets, and using Paveway guided bombs to hit targets from the air with the targeting pod. So, first things first, we're going to come down to the mode selector here, select air to ground, and ensure that the VDI is set to TV. This will allow the lantern feed to come through the targeting pods here. Now in air to ground, make sure you do not have an air to weapon selector, so let's go back to air to ground for a second. So we'll use the weapon selector, up, that's sandminers, sparrows. I'm going to bring that down till nothing is selected, so we have nothing in the HUD, and that will select your air to ground ordnance by default. See if we move the weapon selector up again. There, gun, sidewinder, sparrow, back down to ordnance. So, next thing, we need to tell Jester what bombs we're using. So you press the Jester menu key, which is A by default, A for alpha. Then you hold left control and 8, or you can use, if you have head tracking like I'm doing here. Move your head around, and press A, and you want to select that for 8. Then select ordnance, we're carrying 4 G12s, and press A on that.
Welcome.
So you can see here the targeting pod says GBU12 and laser code. If we were on the ground, we could change that laser code to whatever we wanted to within, I think the limit is 1511 to 1788, something I think. You could have like 1543. Just pick something that no one else in the multiplayer server you're on is using, and you'll be good. So, we're not going to configure things like fuses, so try and go back into Jester menu, back to air to ground, then set mechanical fusing, we'll go nose to tail.
Roger.
And finally set delivery mode. For Paveway, you want manual because you're not relying on the bomb's own computer.
Alrighty.
You're instead relying on the Lantern's targeting computer to know when to put the bombs. The Tomcat's quite weird for a plane with like smart bombing with Paveways, because it was very rushed, the integration of the system onto the Tomcat. The Paveways have no way of really talking to the jet, so like in like a Viper or something, where the Viper can give you release cues based on its own computer, the Tomcat doesn't really have that because it was never meant to carry Paveways. The Bombcat conversion done in the 90s, again, was at the end of its service life, very kind of impromptu, very kind of just not good. It was obviously, it worked, but it wasn't up to the standards of like the Hornet, say. Okay, so now we have that all set up, let's go onto the Jester menu again, set Q mode, Q waypoint, and our target's at waypoint 1. Now Jester's going to bring the T-pods to look at waypoint 1, you can see there. We're at a training range, that's where our targets are, so we'll unpause the game, set the autopilot, set the reference with nose on steering, and let's get going. So I'll just sell that and there's an out shot here. So you can see that on the top of the T-pod display, you see L with a number. That is telling us to come left by 14 degrees. So that will give you steering cues onto target. Again, there's no HUD steering cues because, like I said, the Paveways are not integrated into the Tomcat at all. The Lantern is just functioning on its own sort of onboard systems. And yeah, it's not very good. But it obviously works, and that's all we need. Okay, now let's tell Jester to look for targets. So Jester menu, search for targets. Let's go for any.
Switching to area track.
There's now he's area tracking target location, and we'll hopefully find something for us soon. Now on the Tomcat, the targeted pod is only stored on that kind of right station there where the Sparrow or Phoenix could go. So you need to hold a right-hand orbit to make sure the T-pod doesn't mass itself when you drop the bomb. That's very important to remember. Okay, let's go and reset his search. Hopefully we'll find something this time.
Switching to area track. Captured armor. Valid
There we go,
laser
so
range.
he's found some sort of armored
5
vehicle,
degrees.
so he's telling us to go left 5 degrees. We'll be at a heading of 255 with drop. Let's go on to center line now. So you see there, now we have this kind of bar which is similar to what
Left
you'd
1
see
degree.
on... Let me just pause there. Okay, so now we have this T-rail bar coming down from the top to the bottom. This is very similar to what you would see in a Hornet or a Viper or a
Come left 1.
or JF-17, where you have the release queue come down this bar. Once we get to about 5 or 10 seconds, that'll come down the bar, and when it gets to about there is when Jester will tell us to drop it. You then have TTG time until the bomb
Left 1
impacts.
degree.
Again, since this is a very old system, a very old target on no real ballistics computer, it is
Left
a
1
very
degree.
inaccurate estimate. I've had bombs hit like 5 seconds before they're supposed to, which that's perfectly fine, it just depends on release parameters.
Left 1
So you
degree.
see there,
10 seconds.
TTG is coming down, guess it's called 10 seconds.
5 seconds to drop.
There we go, 5 seconds, he's lasing,
Pickle now. Pickle now.
and there we go, bombs away. So I'll hold that right hand orbit like I discussed. I go into a right hand bank, this should be good enough. So you see now TTG is counting down. You also have T-imp. That is your timed impact queue. So that is counting down when the bomb will hit. Like I said, I've had this impact like 5-10 seconds before it should, which that just depends on the attitude
10
of the plane.
seconds TTI.
There goes now Jester's lasing. The pod is mass behind the car, but shouldn't be a problem.
Oh, yeah!
And there we go,
Impact. Terminate, terminate.
So one fun thing to go over is this kind of squiggly line that goes
Armor
along
captured.
the board of the pod. What this is that is showing the, I guess, the limits of the pod. You have this dot, you can't find where, yeah, you see that dot there? That is where the T-pod's currently looking in relation to the aircraft. So if it were kind of up here, that would be like on board side of the nose. And then if it's over here, that's being masked by the left fuselage of the plane, so that's being masked by like, this part of the plane here. If it is down here, that means the target is behind the aircraft. It's being masked by, I guess, like the structure the camera is set in. So you just want to keep this dot outside of kind of this area here, this kind of border. So we're going for another run. I reckon I can get on. Do a
5
hard.
seconds to drop.
Actually, this time I'll dive down to kind of give the
Come
bomb,
left 14 degrees.
yes, more of a. Let's give us more time to get on to center line. But left 30 degrees,
30 left now.
so about 210. Here we go. And
pickle now.
pickle. Now that bomb's going to hit much sooner, you see only 15-second flight time. Pull up and bank right.
10 seconds TTI. Laser is on. Good impact.
There we go, impact.
Terminate. Out for hit assessment.
Okay, so now I'll discuss target location. So now if we want to do a different target, come to the Jester menu, fix
Armor
target.
captured.
There we go,
Contact.
select
Captured
target.
armor. Armor captured.
As you see here, we're in that kind of border and we're now masked. So I'll bring the plane to a hard right bank, and I'll pause for a second. So now I'll go over some of the other modes available to the pilot. So let's say we're trying to hit a building or a structure that's not like a vehicle on the mission editor. We can use what's called head control. So we have Q eyeballs.
Going to area track.
So this will you have this little circle on your eyeballs where you're looking at the game. Then you can press the Jester menu button again to make the pod stew over to that. Let's have the pod look about there. So Jester's going to try and stew over to that location if you can. Should be within limits, I think. Here it comes. And that's close enough, I think. Okay, so now we also have the Q head control mode, direct head control. So what this does is you have the big circle and your little circle where your eyes are looking. You move the little circle inside the big circle, that'll slew the target pod to where you want it to go. So see I look down. This is more useful to do like very tiny adjustments. Say if you try to hit like a building or something, that can be useful, but again this isn't terribly useful. I'd say just get in the back and do it yourself, honestly. That seems easier. And then we also have a few other things for key modes. I just wanted to the F10 map for a second. So let's say I want to hit this SA15 here. I can come and make a map marker and then place it on top of this SA15, like that. There we go, got a map marker. Now come on to Q mode, Q map marker, there we go.
Got it.
Now Jester should look at that map marker and should see an SA15. There we go, there's the SA15, you can see it right there. It's not telling me because this is like a time hard, but you see it right there. And we finally have two of the Q modes. You have Q HUD, Q snowplow. Q HUD will put the T-pod looking on the bore side of the aircraft. That's useful if you see like a SAM launch, you want to Q Jester into the SAM launch. Just put your crosshair on where the smoke is coming from, and Jester will find it. You can tell him to search, and he'll find the SAM. Snowplow, just what it says on the tin, it puts the T-pod on the snowplow kind of heading directly below the aircraft, and it's like let's do it.
Switching to snowplow.
So you can see there, Jester is looking ahead of the aircraft by a few degrees, and that is again useful if you're just looking for target right ahead of you, but you don't know where exactly where it is. Usually I just use either Q map mark or Q waypoint. That's all I ever use really. Never had used the other two, but you might, who knows. And yeah, that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, have a wonderful day, and see you later. Shark31 signing off.